doctors and nurses and hospitals were totally dependent on nature. Like, the only way to get medicines was to have a herbal garden and to grow your own medicines.
Fellow Homo sapiens. Now, okay, I know that gardening has been well marketed over the last few years, but it's not just a profit-making industry. It has been proven time and time again that nature, gardening, and just being around plants is of distinct benefit to human health. It can reduce stress, heart rate, reduce times even spent in hospitals as an inpatient, and much, much more. This is why it can also be of real benefit to people with an epilepsy, and indeed any carers, family members, and clinicians and researchers.
So my name is Elisabeth Doran. I'm the head of the Epilepsy service in St James's Hospital in Dublin in Ireland. And on the side, I really like gardening and improving access to nature in healthcare settings, especially in my own hospital in St James's Hospital.
Boom. I'm completely with you when it comes to plants and stuff. So, and I believe that's our topic of conversation today, is like the benefits of plants and nature for people affected by the epilepsies.
Yeah, or in general, patient, or there was really very universal benefits that everyone can profit.
And it's almost like embracing our own inner animal, really. Well, we are all primates, right? And it's so natural for us to like plants when plant. But I think it's so many of us seem to be almost either have abandoned nature or feel cut off from nature, which is of detriment to our overall health, right?
And I think the same is true for healthcare settings. Like, for thousands of years, all doctors and nurses and hospitals were totally dependent on nature. Like, the only way to get medicines was to have a herbal garden and to grow your own medicines. And one of the main treatments for a long time was to bring patients outside and get them fresh air, because there weren't any modern medicines. And it's really only with the start of modern medicine and modern pharmacotherapy that there was this removal from nature and hospitals, and that it really stopped playing a big role. But it's in our history and in our nature that this connection, and it's really unfortunately been very much forgotten in modern medicine. And but obviously the nature is all around us, and it's very easy to, or should be easy to access. And I think it's so beneficial to be in nature, and it's not all conscious. A lot of it is unconscious. Like, you wouldn't even know only if you pay attention to it, that. But there is a lot of research done on it, and the benefits are very obvious. Like, you can show that it reduces your heart rate, your blood pressure, your stress levels, even your EEG changes when you're in nature. There's research on that. So it's
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's actually very impressive, and it's hard to find any negatives of having access to nature. So it's actually a very simple way of improving quality of life or improving health, to have access to nature. And even a view of nature has been shown to be hugely beneficial to patients in hospital. Like this, Rogers showed that in the 1980s, that if patients were looking at a tree out of their hospital window instead of a bare wall, they were discharged earlier from hospital, they complained less to nurses, and they needed less pain medication. So it's it's actually a very simple way of helping everyone.
Gardening and all like fancy plants have been very well marketed in general, say online, on TV and stuff, and almost made out to be over fancy at times. But it needn't be so, right? It can be such a cheap almost treatment or thing used to improve quality of life for people. It's not all some sort of like fancy thing from the latest la-di-da garden centre.
No.
It can be something down at the local park. It can be literally just, because I'm thinking of people in cities. So I live in London, and we are lucky we have got loads of parks and stuff as well. But I don't have a garden, but I've still got plants around me, and I can get them really cheap in the shop near to me.
And even that taking care of a plant, it's very beneficial, and it gives you, it's a good pastime, and there's lots of health benefits with, like, even having a picture of a tree in your house, is shown to be beneficial. So it really works on all levels. So, and it's really something that can, like, especially with someone who has epilepsy, like, we do know that patients who have epilepsy tend to exercise less, and for a long time clinicians have kind of been, been very cautious, saying, oh, maybe it's not safe. These types of exercise might not be safe if you could have a seizure during them. So and that kind of stigma probably causes patients with epilepsy to exercise less than the general population, which is really unhealthy, because we should really be encouraging exercise. And gardening is something that can be done very safely, and it can be done close to your home and all around you, or even if you don't have access to a garden, even just to be conscious of the benefit of nature and saying, okay, I'll go for a walk in the park, or I'll go for a walk with my dog, but I'll go to a park, not walking through the city. Or even saying, okay, I'll get a plant and I'll put it in my in my bedroom, or put it in my kitchen, and I'll look after it. Yeah.
Can I say, just make a point, right? I know this looks very strange, but I love it. It's almost like a strange mutation. I always think of it as something. But this cost me, I think, the equivalent, it was like basically about £1.50. And I've just looked after it, and it's just grown, and over the past 3 or 4 years, and it looks nuts, but it's like a little baby, and it just grows, and
and you build up a relationship with it. So.
I know people think it sounds strange, but actually it makes complete sense, thinking of us as the animals that we are. And if you just look back in the history of us as the animals, the primates we are, we used to be up in the trees, and now we're largely at the bottom of the trees and the plants, but they show, as you said, in research studies, distinct benefits of us to be around them. And even if people say, oh, I'm rubbish at gardening and I just kill the plants, or I've forgotten, don't worry about it, right?
Exactly. And I think even that, kind of changing your mindset towards that, and even saying there must be something that you can enjoy. Like, say, even if you don't like gardening, maybe, going for a walk in the park, and there's actually also studies that show even if you don't enjoy being in a nature setting, you still get the benefit of the health benefits, even if you don't enjoy it. So it's worthwhile doing it. And you can just say, I was planning to go to the gym, but I just can't bring myself to do it, but I'll go for a little walk in the park. It's just a small thing, but it has a huge benefit, and really anyone can do it. And even someone who's disability or is in a wheelchair and they can't go out by themselves, bringing them to a park, or even opening the window and letting the fresh air in and hearing the bird song, like this. There's so many small things that you can do to increase your access to nature, and it has so many mental health benefits and physical benefits that I think for anyone, you could find some way to improve their access to nature and to make their life better and improve. And it might even be a way of, say, reducing medications that they need to take because they're aggressive, or because their behavior is difficult to manage. And sometimes maybe it's something, instead of giving them a tablet, say, just bring them outside into the sunshine, or, let them sit under a tree. It might calm them down much more than any medication you can give. And I think we as healthcare professionals don't think about those options enough. It's always the easy thing to prescribe another medication, but we should really be thinking more about social prescribing and encouraging our patients to, use these benefits that are there all around them, and to, enjoy nature and bring more nature into their lives, more gardening.
If it benefits people with an epilepsy, it's going to benefit people without an epilepsy, and even the clinicians themselves, who can actually have really, really stressful lives as well. It benefits anybody, no matter their health status, if you like.
Yeah, and I think that's really something why I think it's really important to promote improving access to nature around hospitals, because it is for the patients. And say, even when you have to wait for your appointment, if you can walk through a park, that makes a huge difference. But if you're working in the hospital and you have a busy day and you can go out for your lunch break and have your lunch under a tree in the sunshine, you're going to be a much happier worker, and you're going to provide better care to your patients. And it's the same if you have to visit someone in a hospital. You can bring them out for a walk in the park. It gives you that little bit of normality that is really not there when you're in hospital, because it's a very artificial environment. So it might be expensive when you put in the garden around the hospital. It might be more expensive than another garden because you have to worry about, accessibility and safety. But once it's there, it really pays back so quickly. And there's even, I think there's more and more evidence. And then on the other hand, with the climate crisis, it's really something that increases biodiversity. It gives shade to the building. It improves air quality. It's really such a no-brainer. But I feel very strongly about trying to promote more access to nature around hospitals and in healthcare settings.
Yeah, and also just going back to what you said about it potentially being a type, almost like a prescription for people.
Yeah.
Like that, like having nature rather than another drug to help, or I mean, I would be really interested to have my heart rate, for instance, as would a lot of people, have their heart rate sort of measured whilst they're around nature, compared to when they're not. And I imagine there have been studies done actually on that, haven't there? And people's heart rate, like literally lowering.
It drops. Yeah, and their blood pressure drops, their stress levels drop. And I think there's one study where they did functional MRI study before and after walk in a park compared to walking on a street for an hour, and they could really show marked differences in terms of like the amygdala, who regulates anxiety and fear in the brain, that was way less active after the walk in the park. So I mean, there's so much evidence, it's actually really, it was there before all modern medicine. Like, it's actually it's just, we've kind of forgotten about it with all our, but we're coming to so many, I think we're increasingly coming to boundaries, even with modern medicine. Like, say, for example, antibiotics. We've developed so many antibiotics. We think we can, treat all infectious diseases. Now it turns out there's so many resistances to modern antibiotics. Or, we've all these amazing new therapies, but they're hugely expensive, and many people in the world won't be able to afford them. And the focus is always on that and trying to design more and develop more, and we've kind of forgotten about the simple old things that are out there, and they're deep within us, like you said, that we've actually come from nature, and for our brains are still wired, evolution doesn't happen that quickly. So I think that's, even though in our modern world nature might not be as prominent as it used to be even 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, our brains still crave it and our bodies still crave it. And to listen to that and to spend more time in nature, I think it's really something where you can, and not just for people with epilepsy, for anyone, even healthy people, or people with other chronic conditions, or, it's just such a, like, there's so many studies that show even children who go to school, if they can see a tree outside the window, they do better in school. That
just sounds so crazy, but the fact that's true.
And that's all I remember from my school, is that lovely magnolia tree I was looking out at in 7th grade. Like one of my memories from school.
It's not the other stuff, but the lovely tree outside. Are there any particular papers you would recommend for anybody to look at to back up our claims that nature is so wonderful to be around?
Yes. So I think for kind of a professional view and all the overview of all the research of the health benefits of gardening and nature, Richard Thompson, who's past president of the RCP in the UK, has written a very nice review article called Gardening for Health, a Regular Dose of Gardening, which I think kind of covers everything, and it's very promoting very much to suggest gardening to all your patients and to your hospitals. So I think that's a nice one. And then for maybe more for non-professionals, there is a very nice book called The Healing Garden, a practical guide for physical and emotional well-being, by Sue Minters, who's the head gardener of the Eden Project. So that's a kind of nice, if you want to start thinking about gardening and the healing effects of nature.
Thank you to Elisabeth for sharing with us, as a professional, the cool ways in which nature can improve the health of people with and without an epilepsy, how accessible it is, how cheap it can be, and indeed how it can be a great first choice for some people when it comes to improving quality of life.